My name is Josephine Palmer, and I'm 77 years old. I spent 39 years as a court stenographer, sitting quietly in courtrooms while lawyers argued and witnesses testified. My job was to be invisible, to listen, to observe, to record every word while people forgot I was there. I retired with $510,000 in savings, a paid-off house, and a skill most people don't appreciate, the ability to hear everything while appearing to hear nothing. Which is why what happened 3 months ago at my daughter's house should have warned me immediately. But it took me far too long to understand what I was hearing. I was sitting in Denise's living room during a Sunday family dinner. My daughter Denise, her husband Frank, and my son Walter were all there. I'd been feeling tired, so I'd excused myself from the kitchen conversation and sat down on the couch to rest. That's when they started talking. About me, like I wasn't sitting 15 feet away. "Mom's getting so forgetful," Denise said to Frank, her voice just loud enough to carry into the living room. "She asked me the same question 3 times yesterday. I'm worried about her." Frank responded, "Has she been to a doctor? Maybe she should get evaluated." "I've suggested it, but she refuses. She's stubborn. She thinks she's fine, but she's clearly declining." Walter joined in. "I've noticed it too. Last week, she called me and didn't remember we'd talked the day before. She kept asking me when I was going to visit, but I'd literally just told her my schedule." I sat on that couch, perfectly still, listening to my children discuss my supposed cognitive decline as if I wasn't in the same room. They spoke over me like I wasn't there, not addressing me directly, but talking about me loud enough that I could hear every word. And here's what they didn't know. I wasn't forgetful. I hadn't asked Denise the same question 3 times. I hadn't called Walter confused about his visit schedule. Every symptom they were describing was either exaggerated or completely fabricated. So why were they lying about my mental state? Why were they speaking over me like I wasn't there, building a narrative of incompetence they knew I could hear? That's when I did what I'd done for 39 years in courtrooms. I stayed quiet, appeared not to notice, and paid very careful attention to every single word they said. Because my family spoke over me like I wasn't there, but I was there. I was listening. I was recording every word in my mind, and what I heard over the next hour would reveal a conspiracy so calculated, so methodical, that it would show me exactly why they wanted everyone, including me, to believe I was losing my mind. But before I tell you what my family said when they thought I wasn't paying attention, before I reveal the scheme they were planning while speaking over me, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. Click it now. Then smash that like button, because this story is going to show you why being underestimated is sometimes the greatest advantage you can have. Turn on those notifications, that bell icon, because you need to hear what happened when I let my family think I was too confused to understand what they were really doing. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. What city? What state? What country? I want to know who's here with me today. Because what I discovered by staying quiet and paying attention while my family spoke over me, about what they were planning to do to me and my money, it's going to shock you just like it shocked me. And it taught me that sometimes the best response to being ignored is to use that invisibility to gather evidence. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you about my relationship with Denise and Walter, and about how I came to be sitting on that couch, supposedly too forgetful to understand the conversation happening around me. To understand what happened, you need to understand my career and how it shaped the way I observe people. I worked as a court stenographer for nearly 4 decades. My job was to sit in the courtroom with my stenography machine and record every word spoken during trials, hearings, and depositions. Lawyers, judges, witnesses, I captured everything they said with perfect accuracy. But here's what most people don't understand about being a court stenographer. You become invisible. People forget you're there. They say things in front of you they'd never say if they remembered someone was recording their every word. I've heard lawyers admit to lies they told clients. I've heard witnesses contradict themselves between breaks. I've heard judges make comments they'd never want on the public record. And I learned to sit very still, appear completely focused on my machine, and absorb every detail of what was happening around me, while people assumed I was just a piece of furniture doing a mechanical task. That skill, the ability to observe without being noticed, to listen without appearing to listen, served me well in my career. But I never imagined I'd need to use it on my own family. I raised 2 children mostly alone after my husband Gerald died when I was 48. Heart disease took him suddenly at 51, leaving me with Denise, who was 22, and Walter, who was 19. Gerald had been an insurance salesman. We'd lived modestly and saved carefully. His life insurance gave me $100,000, which I invested along with continuing to work. By the time I retired at 65, I'd built my savings to $510,000 through disciplined investing and careful budgeting. Denise went to college, became a teacher, and married Frank, who worked in sales. They seemed to do well financially: nice house, new cars, frequent vacations. Walter became an accountant and married a woman named Linda. They also appeared prosperous, though I'd noticed over the years that both my children spent money very freely. "Denise, can you afford this lifestyle?" I'd asked once when she mentioned buying a second vacation home. "Mom, Frank and I both work. We make good money, don't worry about us." But I did worry, because I'd seen the small signs, the credit card bills they'd leave on the counter when visiting, the conversations about cash flow issues, the occasional request for a small loan. Over the years, I'd lent Denise and Frank about $18,000. Walter and Linda had borrowed around $15,000, always with promises to repay, never with actual repayment. When I stopped lending money about 2 years ago, I noticed a shift in how my children treated me. They became more focused on my age, my health, my supposed need for help. "Mom, you're 75. That's getting up there. Have you thought about what happens if you can't manage things yourself?" "I can manage fine. I'm healthy and sharp." "But what if something happens? Who would handle your finances, your medical decisions?" "I have legal documents, power of attorney, healthcare directives, everything's in order." "Who's your power of attorney?" "My attorney, Samuel Gordon. He's handled my legal matters for 20 years. Denise frowned. "An attorney? Mom, that's so impersonal. It should be family." "Samuel is professional and objective. That's what I want." But Denise kept pushing. Every visit, she'd mention something about my age, my supposed confusion, the need for family to help manage things. Then, about 6 months ago, I started noticing something strange. My family would have conversations about me that they clearly wanted me to overhear, but they'd act like they were talking privately. "I'm so worried about Mom," Denise would say to Frank while I was in the next room. "She left the stove on again yesterday." Except I hadn't left the stove on. I barely used the stove. But Denise would say it loud enough for me to hear, then act like she didn't realize I was listening. Or Walter would visit and then call Denise later, calling from my living room while I was supposedly napping in my bedroom. "Mom seems really confused today. I asked her about her doctor appointment, and she didn't remember she had one." Except I didn't have a doctor appointment. Walter was making it up, but he was saying it loud enough for me to hear through my bedroom door. At first, I thought maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe I was actually forgetting things, and my children were genuinely concerned. So I started keeping a diary, writing down every conversation, every incident they mentioned, every claim of forgetfulness. And I quickly realized none of it was true. I wasn't forgetting things. They were fabricating stories about my supposed cognitive decline. But why? What was the purpose of making me, and others, think I was losing my memory? That's what I was trying to figure out on that Sunday afternoon when I sat on Denise's couch, listening to my family speak over me like I wasn't there. "We need to do something about Mom," Denise said to Frank and Walter, her voice carrying clearly into the living room. "She can't keep living alone. It's not safe." "What are you suggesting?" Walter asked. "I think we need to start looking at assisted living facilities, somewhere with memory care. She needs professional supervision." Mom would never agree to that, Frank said. She's stubborn, she thinks she's fine. That's the problem, her judgment is impaired. She doesn't realize how bad things have gotten. Denise lowered her voice slightly, but I could still hear. We might need to pursue guardianship for her own protection. Guardianship. The word sent a chill through me. Guardianship meant a court would declare me incompetent and give someone else legal authority to make my decisions, to control my money, to decide where I lived. Walter spoke up. That's extreme, Denise. Guardianship is a big step. Are you sure it's necessary? What choice do we have? Mom refuses to get evaluated. She refuses to acknowledge she has problems. If we don't act, she's going to hurt herself. Leave the stove on and burn the house down. Wander off and get lost. Make terrible financial decisions. Has she made bad financial decisions? Frank asked. Not yet, but it's only a matter of time. Mom has over $500,000 and she's not capable of managing it anymore. If we don't step in, someone could take advantage of her. She could lose everything. So what's the plan? Walter asked. Denise's voice became conspiratorial. I talked to an attorney. He said we need to document Mom's incompetence. Keep a record of every incident of confusion, every memory lapse, every poor decision. Build a case that shows she's not capable. Then we petition for guardianship. Who would be the guardian? Frank asked. Me, I'm her daughter. I live closest. It makes sense for me to have guardianship. And what about her money? How would that be managed? As guardian, I'd have authority to manage her finances, pay her bills, make investment decisions, sell her house if necessary to pay for her care. I sat on that couch, perfectly still, my heart pounding. My daughter was planning to have me declared incompetent so she could take control of my money and my life. And she was building a false case of cognitive decline to justify it. Walter's voice was uncertain. Denise, I don't know, this feels wrong. Mom seems fine to me most of the time. She's good at hiding it, but trust me, Walter, she's declining. And if we don't act now, while we still can, it'll be too late. Someone else will take advantage of her, or she'll make a terrible decision and lose everything. We're doing this for her own good. For her own good. That phrase made me sick, because this wasn't for my good. This was for Denise's financial benefit. What do you need from me? Walter asked. I need you to document incidents when you visit Mom. Write down times she seems confused, times she forgets things. We need multiple family members reporting the same concerns. The attorney said that's important for a guardianship petition. You want me to write down times Mom seems confused, even if she's actually fine. Walter, she's not fine. You're just not seeing it because you don't want to see it. But trust me, the signs are there. Just pay attention and you'll notice them. My family spoke over me like I wasn't there. They discussed plans to have me declared incompetent. They coordinated building a false case of cognitive decline. And they did it all assuming I was too confused or too asleep to understand what they were saying. But I understood everything. And as I sat on that couch, still and quiet, I made a decision. I would let them continue. Let them think I was unaware. Let them speak over me and around me and about me. Because as long as they thought I wasn't paying attention, they'd reveal everything. Every detail of their plan, every strategy, every lie. My family spoke over me like I wasn't there, so I paid attention. I listened to every word. I absorbed every detail, and I started planning my response. Because they'd forgotten one crucial thing about me. I'd spent 39 years in courtrooms, invisible and ignored, recording every word while people forgot I was listening. And now I'd use that same skill to gather evidence against my own children. Evidence that would ultimately destroy their scheme and protect me from their attempt to steal my life and my money. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. After that Sunday afternoon at Denise's house, I went home and did what I'd done for 39 years. I documented everything. I opened a new file on my computer, labeled it Family Conversations, and typed out every word I'd heard Denise, Frank, and Walter say. every detail about their guardianship plan, every mention of documenting my supposed incompetence, every strategy they discussed for building their case. Then I did something else. I bought a small voice recorder, the kind journalists use. It was tiny, could fit in my pocket, and had excellent audio quality. If my family was going to continue speaking over me like I wasn't there, I was going to record every word. Over the next few weeks, I visited Denise and Walter regularly. I played the part they expected, slightly forgetful, a bit confused, eager for their help with simple tasks. And while they spoke over me, assuming I was too impaired to understand, I recorded everything. At Denise's house one afternoon, I sat in the living room while she talked on the phone to her attorney. She spoke loud enough for me to hear, but acted like she was having a private conversation. Yes, I've been documenting everything. She left the stove on twice this week. She forgot she'd already paid her electric bill and paid it again. She couldn't remember what day it was. I'm keeping detailed notes. None of it was true. I hadn't left the stove on. I'd paid my electric bill once on time, like always. I knew exactly what day it was, but Denise was fabricating incidents to build her case. My recorder captured every word. At Walter's house, I overheard him talking to Linda in their kitchen while I was supposedly napping in their guest room. Denise wants me to write down every time Mom seems confused. But Linda, Mom seems completely normal to me. I don't know what Denise is seeing. Maybe Denise is exaggerating, Linda said. You know how she gets. She's always been dramatic. But what if she's right? What if Mom is declining and I'm not noticing? Or what if Denise has ulterior motives? Walter, your mother has over $500,000. Guardianship would give Denise control of all that money. Don't you think that's at least part of what's driving this? Denise wouldn't do that. She's not motivated by money. Everyone's motivated by money when they're in debt. Walter, I've seen their credit card statements when we've been at their house. They're drowning. This guardianship thing, it's convenient for Denise, isn't it? I lay in that guest room, completely awake, my recorder running, capturing everything. Linda was the only one who saw through Denise's scheme, but Walter wasn't listening to her. Linda, I trust my sister. If she says Mom is declining, I believe her. And if we need to pursue guardianship, then that's what we do, for Mom's protection. After 3 weeks of recording conversations, I had hours of audio documentation. Denise admitting she was fabricating incidents. Walter acknowledging he didn't actually see signs of decline, but choosing to trust Denise anyway. Frank discussing how much money they could access once guardianship was in place. I also started gathering evidence of my competence. I scheduled a comprehensive cognitive evaluation with Dr. Helen Richardson, a respected geriatric psychiatrist. Dr. Richardson tested me for 4 hours, memory tests, reasoning problems, cognitive assessments, everything designed to measure mental capacity. At the end, she smiled. Mrs. Palmer, your cognitive function is exceptional. You score in the 98th percentile for your age group. There's absolutely no evidence of memory impairment, confusion, or cognitive decline. Your mind is as sharp as someone 40 years younger. Can you document that in writing? Absolutely. I'll prepare a comprehensive report. Mrs. Palmer, whoever told you that you're experiencing cognitive decline is either misinformed or deliberately misleading you. It's the latter. My daughter is building a false case to petition for guardianship. Dr. Richardson's expression turned serious. That's elder abuse. Mrs. Palmer, you need legal protection. Have you consulted an attorney? Not yet, but I will. I scheduled an appointment with an attorney who specialized in elder law and guardianship defense. Her name was Victoria Chen, and she came highly recommended. I brought Victoria everything I'd gathered, my diary documenting the false claims, my recordings of family conversations, Dr. Richardson's cognitive evaluation, my financial records showing I managed my money perfectly. Victoria listened to portions of the recordings, her expression growing increasingly grim. Mrs. Palmer, your daughter is attempting guardianship fraud. She's fabricating evidence of incompetence to gain control of your assets. This is serious. But the good news is you have excellent documentation of what she's doing. What should I do? We need to be proactive. If Denise files a guardianship petition, we'll be in a defensive position. Instead, I recommend we file first, a declaration of competence. We present your cognitive evaluation, your evidence of proper financial management, and testimony from Dr. Richardson. We establish on the record that you're fully capable. Then, if Denise tries to file for guardianship later, the court already has our documentation showing her claims are false. Will the recordings be admissible? That depends on state law, but even if they're not admissible in court, they're valuable for understanding Denise's strategy and motivations. Mrs. Palmer, these recordings show clear intent to commit fraud. They also show consciousness of wrongdoing. Denise knows her claims are false, which is why she's fabricating evidence. What about my relationship with Denise? If I file this declaration, she'll know I was aware of her plan all along. Yes, this will destroy your relationship with her. Mrs. Palmer, are you prepared for that? I thought about Denise, the daughter I'd raised, put through college, helped whenever she needed it. The daughter who was now trying to have me declared incompetent so she could steal my money. I'm prepared. Denise made her choice when she decided to fabricate evidence against me. I'm just protecting myself from the consequences of her choice. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria prepared our filing. A comprehensive declaration of competence including Dr. Richardson's evaluation, statements from my attorney Samuel Gordon confirming my sound judgment in legal matters, financial records showing sophisticated asset management, and testimony from my doctor confirming excellent health. We filed it with the probate court. 3 days later, Denise received a copy of the filing. She called me immediately, her voice shaking with rage. "Mom, what did you do? You filed a declaration of competence. Why would you do that?" I stayed calm. Because I'm aware you're planning to petition for guardianship based on false claims of cognitive decline. I'm protecting myself. False claims. Mom, you're confused. You don't remember things. You need help. Give me one example of something I've forgotten. You left the stove on. When? What day? What time? I want specifics, Denise. She fumbled. I don't remember exactly when, but it happened multiple times. It never happened. Not once. Denise, you fabricated those incidents, just like you fabricated me paying my electric bill twice, just like you fabricated me being confused about what day it was. None of it is true, and we both know it. Mom, you're being paranoid. I'm being accurate. Denise, I've been recording our conversations. I have hours of audio of you discussing your guardianship plans, you talking to your attorney about documenting my supposed incompetence, you admitting to fabricating incidents, Frank discussing accessing my money once guardianship is in place. I have all of it. There was stunned silence on the other end. You've been recording us. Mom, that's illegal. Actually, it's not. This state allows one-party consent for recordings. I was present during all these conversations, even though you were speaking over me like I wasn't there. The recordings are completely legal. I can't believe you do this to your own daughter. Mom, we were trying to help you. You were trying to steal from me. Denise, I know about your debts. I know you're drowning financially. I know that's why you want guardianship, to access my $510,000 in savings. That's not true. This was never about money. Then why did Frank say, and I quote from my recording, "Once we have guardianship, we can access Mom's accounts to pay for her care. Assisted living is expensive, but she has plenty of money." Denise, that was never about my care. That was about accessing my money. You're twisting everything. Mom, you're sick. You're paranoid. This is exactly why you need a guardian. I'm not sick. I had a comprehensive cognitive evaluation by Dr. Helen Richardson. She's a board-certified geriatric psychiatrist. Her report shows I'm in the 98th percentile for cognitive function. There's no impairment, no confusion, no decline. Denise, you can't have me declared incompetent because I'm not incompetent. This isn't over, Mom. I'm still going to file for guardianship. The court will see you need help. File if you want. But Denise, I've already established my competence on the record. I have medical evidence. I have financial records showing sophisticated money management. I have testimony from professionals confirming my capacity. What do you have? Fabricated stories that you can't prove and that I can disprove with recordings of you admitting they're false. She hung up on me. 2 hours later, Walter called. Mom, Denise is very upset. She says you accused her of trying to steal from you. Mom, what's going on? What's going on is that Denise has been planning to petition for guardianship based on false claims that I'm cognitively impaired. I filed a declaration of competence to protect myself. Walter, you were part of the planning. I have recordings of you discussing it with Denise. Recordings? Mom, you recorded private conversations. I recorded conversations that happened in my presence, even though you were all speaking over me like I wasn't there. Walter, remember that afternoon at your house when you and Linda discussed Denise's motives? When Linda suggested Denise might be motivated by my money and you dismissed her concerns, I was in your guest room with the door open. You were speaking loud enough for me to hear. I recorded it. You were awake. We thought you were sleeping. You thought I was impaired. You thought I couldn't understand what you were saying. Walter, that's the whole problem. You and Denise have been underestimating me, speaking over me, assuming I'm too confused to notice what you're doing. But I notice everything. I always have. Mom, this is going to destroy our family. Denise destroyed our family when she decided to fabricate evidence against me. I'm just defending myself from her fraud. She wasn't committing fraud. She was genuinely concerned. Walter, I have a recording of Denise telling her attorney that she was fabricating incidents to document. She said, I told him she left the stove on twice this week. She paid her electric bill twice. She couldn't remember what day it was. None of those things happened. Denise made them up. That's fraud. Walter was quiet for a long moment. I didn't know she was making things up. Mom, I thought she was just documenting real incidents. You should have verified with me. Instead, you chose to trust Denise's claims without checking their accuracy. Walter, you were willing to support having me declared incompetent based on your sister's unverified allegations. That's a betrayal. I'm sorry, Mom, I didn't realize. Now you know. Walter, I filed the declaration of competence to protect myself from Denise. But if you continue to support her fraudulent guardianship attempt, you're making a choice about whose side you're on. After I hung up with Walter, I sat in my quiet house and thought about what had just happened. I'd confronted my daughter with evidence of her scheme. I'd made it clear I wasn't the confused old woman she thought I was. And I'd used the recordings I'd made, while they spoke over me like I wasn't there to prove exactly what they'd been planning. 3 days later, I received a notice. Denise had filed a petition for guardianship anyway. Despite everything, despite my declaration of competence, despite knowing I had recordings, despite Dr. Richardson's evaluation, Denise was pushing forward. The petition claimed I was suffering from significant cognitive impairment, that I was unable to manage my financial affairs, and that I was a danger to myself due to poor judgment and memory loss. It was accompanied by an affidavit from Denise listing dozens of incidents of my supposed confusion, all of them fabricated, all of them easily disprovable. I called Victoria Chen. Denise filed for guardianship anyway. I saw the petition. Mrs. Palmer, she's desperate. She's hoping that if she presents enough alleged incidents, the court will believe her despite your evidence. We need to be prepared for a fight. What kind of fight? A court hearing where Denise will present her case, and you'll present yours. She'll call witnesses, probably Walter and Frank, to testify about your supposed decline. We'll call Dr. Richardson, your attorney Samuel, and potentially others to testify about your competence. Mrs. Palmer, this could get ugly. I'm prepared. Victoria, use the recordings. Play them in court if possible. Let the judge hear Denise admitting she fabricated evidence. I'll do everything I can. But Mrs. Palmer, there's something you should know. Guardianship fraud cases are emotionally difficult. You're going to have to sit in court and listen to your daughter lie about you under oath. You're going to hear her claim you're impaired, confused, dangerous to yourself. Can you handle that? I thought about my 39 years in courtrooms, about sitting quietly while lawyers made false arguments, about maintaining composure while listening to people lie. I can handle it. I've spent my entire career listening to lies while appearing not to notice. This is just one more courtroom, one more set of false claims. Victoria, I've been preparing for this my whole professional life. My family spoke over me like I wasn't there. They assumed I couldn't understand what they were planning. They underestimated me completely. But I paid attention. I documented everything. I gathered evidence. And now I was ready to use that evidence to destroy their fraudulent guardianship petition and expose exactly what they'd been trying to do. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. And I knew that when Denise took the stand and started telling her lies, I'd be ready with recordings of her own voice admitting those lies were fabricated. My family had forgotten who I was. They'd seen an elderly woman and assumed weakness, confusion, impairment. They'd forgotten I was a professional observer, a documentarian, someone trained to sit quietly and record every word while people forgot I was listening. That was their mistake, and I was about to make them pay for it. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The guardianship hearing was held in a small courtroom 3 weeks after Denise filed her petition. I sat at a table with Victoria Chen, calm and composed. Across the aisle, Denise sat with her attorney, a man named Robert Hastings who specialized in guardianship cases. Judge Margaret Sullivan presided. She was a woman in her 60s, known for being thorough and skeptical of guardianship petitions. Denise's attorney went first, calling Denise as his primary witness. Miss Palmer, please describe your concerns about your mother's cognitive state. Denise looked at the judge with what appeared to be genuine worry. Your Honor, my mother has been declining for about a year now. She forgets things constantly. She repeats questions. She makes poor decisions. I'm terrified she's going to hurt herself. Can you give specific examples? Yes, she left her stove on multiple times, at least 4 or 5 incidents I know about. She's paid bills twice because she doesn't remember already paying them. She gets confused about what day it is. Last week, she called my brother Walter asking when he was going to visit, but he just told her his schedule the day before. She had no memory of that conversation. I sat perfectly still, listening to my daughter lie under oath. Every incident she described was fabricated, but I showed no reaction. Just like I'd done for 39 years in courtrooms, I remained invisible while I recorded every word in my mind. Miss Palmer, has your mother been evaluated by a medical professional? She refuses. Every time I suggest she see a doctor about her memory, she gets defensive and angry. That's part of the problem. She doesn't recognize how impaired she is. What are you asking the court to do? I'm asking to be appointed as my mother's guardian so I can ensure she gets proper care. She needs to be in an assisted living facility with memory care. She needs professional medical evaluation and treatment. And she needs someone to manage her finances because she's not capable of doing it safely anymore. Robert Hastings sat down. Then Victoria stood up to cross-examine. Miss Palmer, you testified that your mother left the stove on multiple times. Can you tell me the specific dates when this happened? Denise hesitated. I don't remember the exact dates. Not even one date. One specific incident you can describe in detail. It happened several times over the past few months. I didn't write down every date. You're asking the court to declare your mother incompetent, but you can't provide a single specific date or detail about these alleged incidents. They happened. I'm not making this up. Let's move on. You said your mother paid her electric bill twice. When did this happen? Sometime in the past month or 2. Can you tell me which electric company? What? Your mother's electric company. If she paid the bill twice, you must know which company, right? Denise looked flustered. I don't know the name of her electric company. So you don't actually know if she paid a bill twice. You're just claiming she did. She told me she did. Did she? Or are you fabricating this incident? Objection, Robert jumped up. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained, Ms. Chen rephrase. Victoria pulled out a document. Miss Palmer, I have your mother's bank records for the past year. Every electric bill payment is documented. Can you point to any instance where she paid the same bill twice? Denise stared at the bank records. I don't see it here, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Actually, it does. These are complete bank records. If your mother had paid a bill twice, it would show here. It doesn't. Miss Palmer, this incident never happened, did it? I thought it happened. Maybe I was mistaken. Mistaken? Or lying? Miss Palmer, you're under oath. Did your mother pay her electric bill twice, or did you fabricate that story? I didn't fabricate anything. I'm trying to help my mother. Victoria let that hang in the air for a moment. Then she pulled out something else. My voice recorder. Your Honor, I'd like to play an audio recording. Robert objected. Your Honor, we haven't been provided with notice of any recordings. Ms. Chen, is this recording properly authenticated? Yes, Your Honor. It was made by Mrs. Palmer during a conversation at the petitioner's home. This state is a one-party consent state. Mrs. Palmer was present during the conversation, which makes the recording legal. I'll allow it. Play the recording. Victoria pressed play. The courtroom filled with Denise's voice from that phone call to her attorney. Yes, I've been documenting everything. She left the stove on twice this week. She forgot she'd already paid her electric bill and paid it again. She couldn't remember what day it was. I'm keeping detailed notes. The recording was crystal clear. Denise's voice was unmistakable. Then Victoria played another clip from the same conversation. We need to document Mom's incompetence. Keep a record of every incident of confusion, every memory lapse, every poor decision. Build a case that shows she's not capable. Judge Sullivan's expression darkened. Miss Palmer, you're claiming your mother is incompetent, but this recording suggests you were fabricating evidence. Can you explain? Denise looked panicked. That's taken out of context. I was talking to my attorney about legitimate concerns. You said she left the stove on twice this week. Was that true or false? I thought it was true. Miss Palmer, we just established with bank records that your mother didn't pay her electric bill twice. Now you're claiming she left the stove on twice in 1 week. Do you have any evidence of that? She told me. Your mother told you she left the stove on. Mrs. Palmer, did you tell your daughter you left the stove on? I spoke for the first time. No, Your Honor, I haven't used my stove in 3 weeks. I've been eating mostly microwaved meals and salads. I certainly didn't leave it on, and I never told Denise that I did. Judge Sullivan looked at Denise. Miss Palmer, I'm giving you one more chance to be truthful. Did these incidents actually happen, or did you make them up? Denise's eyes filled with tears. Your Honor, I was worried about my mother. Maybe I exaggerated some things to make people take my concerns seriously, but I wasn't lying. I was just emphasizing the issues. Exaggerating and fabricating are forms of lying, Miss Palmer. Continue, Ms. Chen. Victoria called Dr. Helen Richardson to testify. Dr. Richardson described my cognitive evaluation in detail. Mrs. Palmer's cognitive function is exceptional for her age. She scored in the 98th percentile on all assessments. Her memory is excellent. Her reasoning is sharp. Her judgment is sound. There is absolutely no evidence of cognitive impairment or decline. In my professional opinion, Mrs. Palmer is fully capable of managing her own affairs. Dr. Richardson, in your evaluation, did you find any evidence supporting the petitioner's claims of memory loss or confusion? None whatsoever. Mrs. Palmer answered complex questions accurately. She recalled specific dates and details from decades ago. She solved reasoning problems that many younger people would struggle with. If Mrs. Palmer is experiencing cognitive decline, I saw no evidence of it. Robert Hastings tried to undermine Dr. Richardson's testimony on cross-examination. Doctor, isn't it possible that Mrs. Palmer was having a good day when you evaluated her, that her symptoms are intermittent? Cognitive impairment severe enough to warrant guardianship doesn't come and go. If Mrs. Palmer were truly experiencing the level of decline described in the petition, forgetting conversations from the day before, being unable to manage basic tasks, I would have seen signs of it during a 4-hour comprehensive evaluation. I saw nothing. Next, Victoria called my attorney Samuel Gordon. He testified about handling my legal affairs for 20 years. Mrs. Palmer has always demonstrated excellent judgment in legal and financial matters. She understands complex legal documents. She asks intelligent questions. She makes well-reasoned decisions. In our most recent meeting 2 weeks ago, she reviewed and updated her estate plan. She understood every provision and made sophisticated choices about asset distribution and tax planning. This is not a woman with cognitive impairment. Then Victoria called Walter to testify, but not as a witness for Denise. Victoria subpoenaed Walter to testify for us. Mr. Palmer, you're the petitioner's brother, correct? Yes. You were involved in discussions about pursuing guardianship for your mother, correct? Walter looked uncomfortable. Yes. Can you describe those discussions? Denise said she was concerned about Mom's memory. She asked me to help document incidents of confusion. Did you personally witness incidents of confusion? Walter hesitated. Not really. Mom seemed normal to me most of the time. Most of the time, or all the time? All the time. Mom seemed completely fine whenever I saw her. So, why did you agree to support a guardianship petition, claiming she's incompetent? Because Denise said she was seeing things I wasn't seeing. She said Mom was better at hiding it when I was around. I trusted my sister. Victoria played another recording, the conversation between Walter and Linda in their kitchen. Walter's voice. Denise wants me to write down every time Mom seems confused. But Linda, Mom seems completely normal to me. I don't know what Denise is seeing. Linda's voice. Maybe Denise is exaggerating. You know how she gets. She's always been dramatic. Walter's voice. But what if she's right? What if Mom is declining and I'm not noticing? Linda's voice. Or what if Denise has ulterior motives? Walter, your mother has over $500,000. Guardianship would give Denise control of all that money. Don't you think that's at least part of what's driving this? The recording continued with Walter dismissing Linda's concerns and saying he trusted Denise. Judge Sullivan looked at Walter. Mr. Palmer, your wife suggested your sister might have financial motives. Do you still dismiss that concern? I don't know anymore. After hearing these recordings, I'm not sure what to believe. Let me ask you directly. Based on your own personal observations, do you believe your mother is incompetent? No. Based on what I've seen, Mom seems completely capable. Robert Hastings looked devastated. His own witness had just undermined the entire petition. Finally, Victoria called me to testify. Mrs. Palmer, your daughter claims you're experiencing severe cognitive decline. Is that true? No, I'm in excellent health, both physical and cognitive. I manage my own finances. I maintain my own home. I make my own decisions. There's nothing wrong with my mind. Why do you think your daughter filed this petition? Because she's in financial trouble and she sees my savings as a solution. Denise and Frank have significant debt. They're struggling financially. If Denise becomes my guardian, she gets control of my $510,000 in savings. She can use that money to pay for my care while actually using it to solve her own financial problems. How do you know they're in financial trouble? I've seen their credit card statements when visiting their house. I've heard them argue about money. I've noticed they've stopped taking expensive vacations and cut back on spending. Denise asked me for a $25,000 loan 6 months ago. I refused. 2 months later, she started this guardianship campaign. Mrs. Palmer, your family has been speaking about you in ways that suggested they thought you couldn't understand them. Can you describe that? They would have conversations about me while I was in the same room, speaking over me like I wasn't there. They'd discuss my supposed decline loud enough for me to hear, but act like they were having private conversations. They assumed I was too impaired to understand or too confused to remember what they were saying. But I understood perfectly, and I documented everything. Why did you record those conversations? Because I spent 39 years as a court stenographer. My job was to sit in courtrooms, invisible and unnoticed, recording every word while people forgot I was there. When my family started speaking over me like I wasn't there, I used the same skills. I became invisible. I paid attention. And I recorded evidence of what they were really planning. What were they planning? To fabricate a case of incompetence, to have me declared incapable, to take control of my life and my money. They spoke over me like I wasn't there, assuming I couldn't understand or wouldn't remember. But I was there. I was listening. I was paying attention. And every word they said proved they knew I was competent. They just wanted to convince others I wasn't. Judge Sullivan had heard enough. I'm ready to rule. We all stood as the judge prepared her decision. I've reviewed the petition, heard testimony, and examined the evidence. The petition for guardianship is denied. Mrs. Palmer has demonstrated exceptional cognitive capacity. Dr. Richardson's evaluation is thorough and credible. Mr. Samuel Gordon's testimony confirms Mrs. Palmer handles complex legal matters competently. And these recordings are deeply troubling. Miss Palmer, you fabricated evidence. You lied under oath about incidents that never happened. You coordinated with family members to build a false case of incompetence. This isn't a daughter concerned about her mother's well-being. This is an attempted fraud to gain control of assets. Mrs. Palmer, I'm granting you a protective order. Denise Palmer is prohibited from filing any future guardianship petitions without substantial medical evidence from independent qualified professionals. She is also prohibited from accessing your financial accounts or interfering in your affairs. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of possible guardianship fraud and perjury. Miss Palmer, what you've done here is a crime. The judge banged her gavel. Denise looked stunned. Robert Hastings gathered his papers quickly and left. As we walked out of the courtroom, Denise tried to approach me. Mom, please, I'm sorry, I made mistakes, but I was trying to help. Stop lying, you were trying to steal. Denise, you fabricated evidence, you committed perjury. You tried to have me declared incompetent so you could take my money. That's not help, that's theft. I'm your daughter, doesn't that mean anything? It used to. But you destroyed that when you decided I was worth more to you as an incompetent woman you could control than as a competent mother you had to respect. I walked away, leaving Denise standing in the courthouse hallway. My family spoke over me like I wasn't there. They assumed I couldn't understand. They underestimated me completely. But I paid attention. I documented everything. I recorded their own words. And I used those recordings to destroy their fraudulent scheme and protect myself. They forgot who I was, forgot that I'd spent decades sitting quietly in courtrooms, invisible and unnoticed, capturing every word while people forgot I was listening. That was their mistake, and now they'd paid for it. 3 days after the guardianship hearing, I received a call from Detective Marcus Webb with the district attorney's office. Judge Sullivan had followed through on her promise to refer Denise's case for criminal investigation. Mrs. Palmer, I've been assigned to investigate the attempted guardianship fraud. I've reviewed the court transcripts and listened to your recordings. I'd like to meet with you to discuss potential charges against your daughter. We met at a coffee shop near my house. Detective Webb was a man in his early 50s, professional and direct. Mrs. Palmer, what your daughter did constitutes several crimes. Perjury, lying under oath about your cognitive state. Attempted fraud, trying to gain control of your assets through false pretenses. And potentially elder abuse, emotionally manipulating you by fabricating stories about your mental decline. Are you willing to press charges? I thought about Denise, about the daughter I'd raised, about the grandchildren I had through her, 2 teenagers I loved dearly. If Denise faced criminal prosecution, it would devastate her family. But I also thought about what she'd tried to do to me. Take my freedom, take my money, take my dignity, all while pretending it was for my own good. What would the charges mean for her? Perjury is a felony. She could face up to 5 years in prison. Attempted fraud could add another 3 to 5 years. Elder abuse could add more. Mrs. Palmer, if we prosecute this fully, your daughter could be looking at significant prison time. And if I don't press charges? The perjury charge could proceed without your cooperation. She lied to the court, and judges take that seriously. But the fraud and elder abuse charges would be much weaker without your active participation. Mrs. Palmer, the decision is partly yours and partly the district attorney's. I thought about it for several days, and then I made a decision that surprised even me. I called Detective Webb. I'll cooperate with the investigation, but I want to offer Denise a choice. If she agrees to certain conditions, I won't push for the maximum charges. What kind of conditions? She enters therapy to address whatever led her to think this was acceptable. She makes a public admission to the family about what she did and why. She stays away from me unless I initiate contact, and she makes no claim to my estate when I die. If she agrees to all of that, I'll ask the DA to consider minimal charges, probation instead of prison. That's generous after what she tried to do to you. It's not generous. It's strategic. Denise in prison doesn't benefit anyone. But Denise acknowledging what she did, facing consequences, and being cut out of my inheritance, that protects me while giving her a chance to avoid destroying her entire family. Detective Webb presented my offer to the district attorney, who agreed to approach Denise's attorney with a plea deal. 2 weeks later, I received word that Denise had accepted the terms. She would plead guilty to attempted fraud, receive probation, and agree to all my conditions. No prison time, but a criminal record and mandatory counseling. Part of the plea agreement required Denise to participate in a family meeting, mediated by a therapist, where she would admit what she'd done and explain why. The meeting was held in a therapist's office. Present were me, Denise, Walter, Linda, and Dr. Sharon Martinez, the mediator. Frank was notably absent. Denise had informed me they were separating. Dr. Martinez started the session. Denise, you've agreed to explain to your family what you did and why. Please begin. Denise looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, defeated. I attempted to have my mother declared incompetent through a guardianship petition based on fabricated evidence. I lied about her cognitive state. I made up incidents that never happened. I coordinated with others to build a false case, and I did it to gain control of her finances. Why? Walter asked. Mom, why would you do that? Because Frank and I are drowning. We owe $280,000 in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, a second mortgage. We're facing foreclosure. Our cars are being repossessed. We're bankrupt. And I looked at Mom's $510,000 in savings and I thought she doesn't need all that money. She lives simply. She'd never spend it all. If I could access it as her guardian, I could use some to pay for her care while actually using it to save my family. I spoke for the first time. You saw me as a bank account, not a person. Yes, and I'm so sorry, Mom. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing, that you'd be better off in assisted living anyway, that managing your money was too stressful for you at your age, that I was helping you while helping myself. But it was all lies. Lies I told you, lies I told the court, and lies I told myself. When did you start planning this? About a year ago, when our financial situation got really bad. I started researching guardianship. I learned what I'd need to prove to get it. Then I started manufacturing evidence, speaking loudly about your supposed confusion so you'd hear and maybe start doubting yourself, telling family members you were declining so they'd believe it, building a narrative. The conversations where you spoke over me like I wasn't there, those were deliberate. Yes, I thought if you heard me telling others you were confused, you might start believing it yourself. I thought I could gaslight you into thinking you were actually impaired. But Mom, you're too sharp. You noticed everything. You documented everything. You recorded everything. I underestimated you completely. Walter looked sick. Denise, you used me. You made me think Mom was actually declining. I was ready to support taking away her rights based on your lies. I know, Walter, I'm sorry. I manipulated you. I exploited your trust in me to get you to go along with the plan. You were just as much a victim of my fraud as Mom was. Don't compare us, I said sharply. Walter was deceived, I was targeted, there's a difference. Dr. Martinez intervened. Josephine, what do you need from Denise to move forward? I need honesty about the full extent of what she did. Denise, how long had you been planning this before you started building the false evidence? 2 years. I first thought about it 2 years ago when you refused to lend me $25,000. I was angry. I thought, she has all this money and won't help her own daughter. That's when the idea first occurred to me, that if you were declared incompetent, I could access the money without your permission. Did Frank know what you were doing? He knew I was pursuing guardianship. He didn't know I was fabricating evidence. When he found out, after the court hearing, he was disgusted. That's why we're separating. He said he married someone he thought had integrity and discovered I was willing to commit fraud against my own mother. What about my grandchildren? Do they know? They know I did something wrong involving you and money. They don't know the details, but they're angry at me. They're embarrassed. My daughter told me she's ashamed to be related to me. I felt a pang of sympathy for Denise's children, innocent teenagers dealing with their mother's criminal behavior. But I pushed the sympathy aside. This wasn't about them. Denise, what have you learned from this? She thought for a long moment. That I'm capable of terrible things when I'm desperate. That I can lie to myself so effectively that I convince myself wrong is right. That the people I love most are the people I'm most willing to hurt when I think I can get away with it. Mom, I have a lot of work to do on myself. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I want you to know I finally see what I did clearly. Not the justified version I told myself. The actual truth. After the session, Walter asked to speak with me privately. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have questioned Denise's claims. I should have talked to you directly instead of trusting her version of events. I failed you. You did, but Walter, you also corrected course. When you testified in court, you told the truth about not witnessing any cognitive decline yourself. That took courage. Linda was the one who saw through Denise from the beginning. She kept telling me Denise had ulterior motives, but I didn't want to believe my sister would do something like this. Trust but verify, that's the lesson here. Linda was smart to question. You should have listened to her. I know. Mom, can we repair our relationship? That depends. Are you going to respect my boundaries going forward? Are you going to treat me as a competent adult instead of an elderly woman who needs managing? Absolutely. Mom, I've learned my lesson. I'll never again assume you need help unless you specifically ask for it. Good. Then yes, we can rebuild. It'll take time, but we can try. Over the next few months, several things happened. Denise completed her probation requirements, including mandatory therapy. She and Frank divorced. She sold their house and moved to a modest apartment. She got a job as a teacher's aide. Her teaching license had been suspended due to her criminal conviction. Her financial situation remained difficult, but she was managing. Living within her means for the first time in years. I saw her occasionally, brief, supervised meetings where we'd talk about surface-level topics. The relationship we'd had before was gone. What remained was a cautious, formal connection between two people who shared history but no longer shared trust. Walter and Linda visited regularly. Our relationship slowly healed. Walter had learned a painful lesson about blind trust in family, and he seemed genuinely committed to treating me with the respect I deserved. I also did something unexpected. I used my experience to help others. I started volunteering with a legal aid organization that helped elderly people fight fraudulent guardianship attempts. I'd speak with victims, help them document evidence, teach them how to gather recordings, and connect them with attorneys. You have to pay attention, I'd tell them. Even when people speak over you like you're not there, especially then. Because when people think you're not listening, that's when they reveal their true intentions. One woman I helped, an 82-year-old named Dorothy, was facing a guardianship petition from her nephew. He claimed she was incompetent and needed him to manage her finances. But I'm not incompetent, Dorothy told me. I know exactly what's happening. My nephew wants my money. Then we document that. Dorothy, start recording conversations. Get a cognitive evaluation. Gather evidence of your competence. Don't let him underestimate you. Dorothy followed my advice. She recorded her nephew admitting he thought she was losing it and would be easy to control. She got a stellar cognitive evaluation. She gathered financial records showing sophisticated money management. When the guardianship hearing happened, Dorothy used the same playbook I'd used. She presented recordings, medical evidence, and testimony from professionals. The petition was denied. Her nephew was ordered to pay her attorney fees. "You saved me," Dorothy told me afterward. "If I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have known how to fight back." "You saved yourself. I just showed you the tools. Dorothy, you did the work." I helped dozens of people over the next few years. Elderly men and women facing guardianship, fraud from family members who saw them as ATMs rather than people. Each case was different, but the pattern was the same. Family members underestimating elderly relatives, assuming they wouldn't notice or couldn't fight back. My story became somewhat known in elder law circles. Attorneys would refer clients to me. "Talk to Josephine Palmer. She beat a fraudulent guardianship petition and she can teach you how to do the same." I gave presentations at senior centers about protecting yourself from family financial exploitation. The key points were always the same. Stay sharp and prove it. Get regular cognitive evaluations. Document your competence with medical professionals. Pay attention when people speak over you. When family members have conversations about you that they want you to overhear, that's a manipulation tactic. Document what they say. Record conversations where legal. In one-party consent states, if you're present during a conversation, you can record it. Use that tool. Trust your instincts. If family members are telling you you're confused when you know you're not, trust yourself. They're gaslighting you. Get professional help immediately. Don't wait. If you suspect a guardianship attempt is coming, file a declaration of competence first. Be proactive, not reactive. 3 years after the court hearing, I received an unexpected letter from Denise. It was handwritten, several pages long. "Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I destroyed our relationship and I have no right to ask for anything from you. But I wanted you to know what the past 3 years have been like for me and what I've learned. Losing everything, my marriage, my house, my teaching license, my relationship with you, was the worst experience of my life. But it was also necessary. I was living a lie, spending money I didn't have, trying to maintain an image of success while drowning in debt. And when the debt became overwhelming, instead of facing my problems honestly, I tried to steal from you. Therapy has helped me understand why. I felt entitled to your money because I'm your daughter. I thought you owed me support, owed me help, owed me access to resources that would solve my problems. I never saw your savings as money you'd earned through decades of hard work. I saw it as family money that should be available to me when I needed it. That entitlement is what allowed me to fabricate evidence against you. I convinced myself it wasn't really fraud because I was just accessing money that would be mine eventually anyway. I told myself I was helping you by taking control of your finances before you became too impaired to manage them yourself. But it was all justification for theft. What you did, recording the conversations, gathering evidence, fighting back in court, saved both of us. It saved you from losing your independence and your money. But it also saved me from succeeding in my fraud. If I'd won guardianship, if I'd accessed your accounts and spent your money, the guilt would have destroyed me eventually. You stopped me before I could do irreparable damage. And even though facing consequences has been painful, it's also been healing. I'm living honestly now, within my means. I'm teaching my children about financial responsibility by modeling it instead of lecturing about it while doing the opposite. I'm writing because my daughter, your granddaughter Sarah, is graduating high school in 3 months. She wants to invite you to the ceremony. She knows what I did. She knows we don't have a relationship anymore. But she also knows you're her grandmother and she loves you. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to have a relationship with me. I'm just asking if you'd be willing to come to Sarah's graduation. For her sake, not mine. She shouldn't be punished for my crimes. Whatever you decide, I want you to know I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I tried to do to you. Sorry for seeing you as a resource instead of a person. Sorry for underestimating you. And sorry for all the years we've lost because of my choices. With regret and respect, Denise. I read the letter 3 times. Part of me wanted to throw it away and ignore it. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the little girl Denise had been before debt and desperation corrupted her, felt something soften. I called Walter to ask his advice. Mom, Sarah talks about you all the time. She asks me about you. She wants to know her grandmother. And you should know, Sarah is nothing like Denise was at that age. She's careful with money. She works part-time and saves. She's been accepted to college on a scholarship. She's a good kid. Should I go to the graduation? That's your decision. But Mom, Sarah didn't do anything wrong. She suffered because of Denise's choices, lost her house, watched her parents divorce, dealt with the shame of having a mother with a criminal record. If you can separate your feelings about Denise from your relationship with Sarah, I think you should go. I thought about it for a week. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I called Denise directly. Denise, I got your letter. I'll come to Sarah's graduation. But I want to be clear, this isn't for you. It's for Sarah. And it doesn't mean our relationship is repaired. It just means I'm willing to be present for important moments in my grandchildren's lives. Thank you, Mom. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. Denise, one more thing. I'm updating my will. You're not in it. Everything goes to Walter, to Sarah and her brother when they turn 25, and to charities that help elderly people fight guardianship fraud. You will inherit nothing from me. Do you understand? I understand. Mom, I don't expect anything from you. I'm just grateful you're willing to come to Sarah's graduation. The graduation was held at a local high school auditorium. I sat with Walter and Linda, separate from Denise. When Sarah's name was called, I stood and applauded with everyone else. After the ceremony, Sarah found me. She was 18 now, a young woman, not the child I remembered from before the court battle. Grandma Josephine, you came. I'm so happy you're here. We hugged, and I felt a connection I hadn't felt in 3 years, the simple joy of loving a grandchild. I'm proud of you, Sarah. Walter told me about your scholarship. That's a wonderful achievement. Thank you. Grandma, can we talk sometime? Just the 2 of us. I'd like to get to know you better. I know what happened with Mom. I know things are complicated. But you're my grandmother and I don't want to lose that relationship because of mistakes my mother made. I'd like that. Sarah, let's have lunch next week. Just you and me. Over the next year, I built a relationship with Sarah. We'd have lunch monthly. She'd tell me about college, her studies, her dreams. I'd share stories about my career, about being a court stenographer, about the importance of paying attention to what people say when they think you're not listening. Grandma, what you did, recording Mom's conversations and using them to protect yourself, that was brilliant. You taught me something important. Never underestimate people, and never assume you can get away with things just because someone seems vulnerable. That's a good lesson to learn. Sarah, people underestimated me because I'm elderly. They assumed I was weak, confused, easy to control. They forgot that age doesn't equal incompetence, that I had decades of professional experience observing and documenting. That being underestimated can be an advantage if you use it strategically. I'll never underestimate people, especially not elderly people. Grandma, you changed how I see older adults. I used to think getting old meant losing power. You showed me it can mean gaining wisdom and strategy. 4 years after the guardianship hearing, I turned 81. Walter and Linda threw me a small birthday party at their house. Sarah was there, now a college junior. Her younger brother Marcus was there, a high school sophomore I was also getting to know. Denise wasn't invited, and I didn't miss her presence. We'd had a few brief conversations over the years, mainly about the kids, but we didn't have a relationship. That part of my life was over. At the party, Sarah gave a toast. To Grandma Josephine, the strongest woman I know. 4 years ago, she taught our family an important lesson, that underestimating someone because of their age is a terrible mistake. That speaking over someone like they're not there doesn't mean they're not listening. And that the people we dismiss as vulnerable often turn out to be the ones who are really in control. Everyone raised their glasses, and I thought about everything that had happened since that Sunday afternoon when I sat on Denise's couch, listening to my family speak over me like I wasn't there. They'd assumed I couldn't understand what they were planning. They'd underestimated me completely. They'd thought an elderly woman sitting quietly in the next room wasn't a threat. But I'd paid attention. I'd used skills honed over 39 years in courtrooms, the ability to be invisible while recording everything. I'd documented their scheme. I'd gathered evidence. And I'd used that evidence to destroy their fraudulent guardianship attempt and protect myself. My family spoke over me like I wasn't there. That was their fatal mistake. Because I was there, I was listening, I was documenting, and I was far more capable than they'd ever imagined. 5 years later, at 86, I still lived independently in my own home. I still managed my own finances, now grown to nearly $600,000 through careful investing. I still volunteered helping elderly people fight guardianship fraud. And I still told my story to anyone who'd listen. When people speak over you like you're not there, pay attention. Because that's when they reveal who they really are and what they really want. And that information, that evidence of their true intentions, that's power. Use it. Denise and I never reconciled. She'd made her choices. I'd made mine. We existed in separate worlds connected only by our shared grandchildren. But I had no regrets. Because when my family tried to steal my independence, my dignity, and my money by speaking over me like I wasn't capable of understanding, I did exactly what I'd done for 39 years in courtrooms. I stayed quiet, I observed, I documented, and I used what I learned to protect myself. They thought I wasn't there, but I was always there, always listening, always paying attention. And that made all the difference.